While the 2020-21 season saw many players, young and old, have the best years of their careers, there were also a handful of players who fell off in one way or another, and I feel like this might be their last chance to bounce back. If they don't, their future and their own teams will suffer some devastating implications. Let's talk about these players. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and without further ado, let's get started. Rui Hachimura. I could probably put Bradley Beal on this list as well, since Beal fell off drastically and needs to bounce back too. But while Beal is the franchise player of the present, Hachimura was supposed to be the star of the future, at least for the Wizards. The team in recent years have been in an awful spot. They've been barely a playoff team, trying to make some last-ditch moves to build around Beal, but to no avail, and now they're on the outside looking in. Unlike other teams, they don't have a solid foundation of young talent for the future. Beal is approaching 30, surrounded by a bunch of players in their late 20s who have basically reached their limit already. Hachimura is currently the only young player who can potentially take over the franchise if he wants it. However, in the previous year, he's dealt with personal issues that caused him to miss the majority of the season. And when he returned, he came off the bench and had to slowly integrate himself back into the offense. When a reporter asked him about the reason for his absence, this is how Hachimura responded. "It's kinda hard to explain, but in Japan, we don't have a season. We play basketball all year. I never got time off. Even in college, I played on national teams in the summer. Last year after the season, I went back to Japan to play for the national team. It's been tough." Now going into his 4th season, Hachimura has a lot to prove. It's a contract season for him. He's playing for his first major payday, and the Wizards will gauge whether or not he's worth keeping for the long haul. When he first entered the NBA, he generated a lot of hype. People looked at him and saw a playstyle reminiscent of Carmelo Anthony. Heck, even his defense reminded us of Melo as well. Hachimura was statistically the worst defender in the NBA in his rookie season, and overall, his individual defensive rating of 115.6 is among the worst in NBA history. Hopefully, he'll have a breakout season and show the team he can be their franchise cornerstone. If he doesn't show that he could improve, the Wizards really don't have anyone else to build around for the future once Beal's time is up. It's a crucial time for Rui to succeed. Julius Randle. Remember a few years back when Randle had a fantastic season and led the Knicks to the playoffs? That was in the 2020-21 season, which seems like an eternity ago. But it truly looked like Randle finally figured it out. He spent years in LA struggling to find his place in the league, but that season in New York, everything came together. He became an all-star for the first time of his career and averaged career highs across the board, in points, rebounds, and assists. More impressively, he led a battered-down Knicks team to the playoffs with a respectable winning record. Fans actually felt like this was Randle's breakout season and this was the start of something special, of something new. Sadly, it wasn't the case. Instead, it was more like a one-season wonder. He overperformed during a contract year. Over that summer of 2021, he signed a 4-year, $117 million extension. And shortly after, his game regressed. He returned back to being the Julius Randle we've always known him for. Inconsistent, bad shot selection, careless with the ball. In terms of efficiency, it was his worst season since his sophomore year. Now, this is a make-or-break time for Julius Randle. If he does not bounce back, he'll definitely be on the trade block. The Knicks have somewhat high expectations this year after signing Jalen Brunson to a ludicrous contract. And with expecting their young guys to make a leap, it's a make-or-break season for the entire team. If they don't make the playoffs and if their young talent continues to stagnate, the Knicks are in for a bleak future. But I guess they're used to it. Ben Simmons. I don't think there's anyone in the league with a bigger chip on their shoulder than Ben Simmons. Not only did he sit out an entire season, but everything he did was carefully observed under a microscope. From the funky outfits to his off-court drama, heck, he even admitted to the Nets front office he had a mental block for the entire season, and all the negative headlines were really affecting his mental health. Simmons also claimed that the stress triggered his back problems that caused him to sit out the playoffs too, even though reportedly he was supposed to return. Brian Windhorst of ESPN summed it up nicely. Quote, "People involved here are exasperated by this saga because that is what it is. I got the feeling that it was like waving a white flag. I know that this might have the appearance of Ben Simmons saying, 'I don't want to play, we're down 3-0,' but he woke up yesterday with his back hurting. That is what I've been told, and it's just as simple as that." For his entire career, Simmons has been a polarizing figure, the butt of many jokes and many critics, but also a guy who's immensely talented, with so much potential he still hasn't reached. That's why people are hard on him, because it seems like he's wasting away his skills, or not putting the effort to improve. Not just that, but this entire Nets team has been the most dysfunctional franchise of the past few years. They have so much talent. There's been so many trade rumors, and yet everyone is still here. Their championship odds rely on Simmons returning to the court and showing he can still play at an all-star level. If Simmons comes back lackadaisical and looks even worse than before after sitting out an entire season, oh man, he's gonna get destroyed by the media and fans. John Wall. I feel like I made a similar video last year and Wall was also on the list. He's just been either injured or purposely sitting out since like 2019. In fact, since he signed his massive $170 million contract in the summer of 2017, he played a total of just 113 games across 5 seasons. That included missing 2 entire seasons, one caused by an Achilles injury, the other because the team wanted him to sit out. Adrian Wojnarowski explained it like this. Quote, "The Rockets and Wall reached a mutual decision for the veteran guard not to play last season with Houston in the early stages of a rebuild. The Rockets instead prioritized the development of young guards Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green. So Wall did not fit in the franchise's plans despite his $44.3 million salary." Basically, since he signed that lucrative contract, Wall really did not accomplish anything in those 5 years. Now, with him joining the Clippers and with Kawhi and Paul George expected to be healthy, this team looks frightening. If they can remain on the floor. Wall is now playing for a legitimate contender for the first time of his career, so it's time for him to show out. After this long, extended break, this is Wall's last chance to show he can still play at an all-star level, the athletic, explosive player he was once known for. The Clippers' championship hopes depend on him. This team is still Kawhi and Paul George's team, but their championship hopes depend on Wall's return. How well can he actually play? Can he still show that he's that guy, or will he fall into obscurity and become a role player for the rest of his career? Kemba Walker. It wasn't too long ago when both John Wall and Kemba Walker were top 5 point guards in the league, but it seems like an eternity since either of them have been good. For Kemba, his decline has been more recent, but very rapid. The issue started to stem from his lingering knee soreness in late 2020. At that point, he got surgery on his left knee and it never healed properly. Even when he came back, he frequently had to sit out games because of the pain. The injuries were reflected in his game too. Kemba eventually got traded to the New York Knicks, where he had the worst scoring season of his career. The lowest points per game and assists per game he's ever recorded. And because the Knicks snatched Jalen Brunson in free agency, they felt it was time to get rid of Kemba. They unloaded him to the Detroit Pistons, who bought out the remainder of his contract. Whichever team Kemba ends up on now, it might be his last chance to redeem himself. Personally, I want to see him play on a contender. He spent so many years as the franchise player of a team that only made the playoffs twice, in the 8 seasons he was there. Whether it's starting or coming off the bench, this will be a crucial season for Kemba to bounce back, if he gets the chance. James Harden. After a postseason run that was cut short, the Sixers needed to rethink their roster construction. The first guy who came to mind was James Harden. Not too long ago, he was the best scorer in the league, a bona fide superstar who was recording perennial MVP caliber seasons. But on the Sixers, he looked like a shell of his former self. In the playoffs against the Heat, he got firmly outplayed by Jimmy Butler. This was when the Sixers needed him most. Embiid was dealing with a torn ligament in his hand, so it was time to summon Harden, their other superstar, to take over. but it just never happened. We were waiting and waiting and waiting for Harden to blow up and have a spectacular performance to carry this team to victory, but it never came. However, he still re-signed with the Sixers, and now it's time to prove he can still play like he used to. We know what Embiid and Tobias and Maxey are bringing to the table, but Harden is a big question mark, a huge one. The Sixers' title hopes rely on if Harden can channel his Houston form, or if he even has that in him anymore. He's on the wrong side of 30 and he's on the downswing of his career, but maybe he has one last great season in him. Anyway, that's all folks. Let me know your thoughts on these guys and where do you see their seasons heading towards? Do you see some of them bouncing back? Which other players do you have in mind who you want to see revitalize their career? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.